Hey guys, I just want to let you know this is part 3 of Innocent Lure, Jeff the Killer Love Story. Sorry. And this is chapters 9. This is from chapters 9 to 12. Sorry again. Ugh, I always think too much. And sorry. And I'm gonna be reading those chapters, and hopefully you're gonna like this chapter, because after this chapter I'm gonna start reading 5 at a time. And so far the story, hopefully you guys are liking it, because it's getting really good. And yeah, so now I'm gonna get ready to read, so here we go. And here's the kitchen, Masky said, as if he was announcing something extraordinary. I giggled at his attitude, and he chuckled as a reply. The mansion was huge and amazing. They had multiple rooms, but I wasn't really allowed to go in them since they were other people's rooms. Just by the color of the door, you can tell whose room it was. For example, Ben's door was an emerald green trimmed with red and black, while Jack's was a dark blue with the black leaking from the top of the door. The only room that I actually got a look inside of was Sally's. It was kind of like the piano room, except for the colorful drawings across the floor and wall. She had a pink frilly bed that was topped off with multiple stuffed animals on top, a nightstand next to it with a pink lamp and clock. But the one thing that stood out the most was an extravagant stained glass window that was touched the ground. I couldn't stay long enough to make out what was created on it, but I was mesmerized by its beauty. The living room had a beautiful velvet couch with a dark mahogany coffee table in front of it. A typical TV facing the couch. 2 armchairs were to the left and right of the coffee table. Encircling it, the kitchen had a long dining table in the middle of it. For a dark-colored house, the kitchen was very brightly colored, mostly white. There was a screen color that led out to a backyard that had a big oak tree with an old-fashioned swing. So Ariel, do you like video games? Ben asked. How did I know that you were going to say that? And yes, I play World of Warcraft, Halo, Mortal Kombat, F38R, though I just started playing that. I used to play DC Universe Online and Explore, and my dad and I started playing Aliens Colonial Marines. I encountered. I looked at Ben, and he gave me a look of shock. While he was gathering his jaw, Masky led me into the living room and sat down on the couch. So, how do you like it? Jack asked. Don't get too comfortable, Jeff said. It seemed at the moment that everyone besides me glared at him. I didn't mean about leaving, I meant about the others. How are we going to keep her as a secret from them? He asked, relaxing in the armchair to my right. Well, we'll just keep her in the house most of the time, and my brother shouldn't be a problem. He said, messaging his temple, as if the thought of his brother brought him a headache. And if people visit, Jeff continued. Well, we keep her in the entertainment room to keep her occupied until they leave, Jack answered. Jeff seemed to look as if he was trying to find more questions, but he couldn't find anything. Hey, Ariel. Since you seem to be a legit gamer girl, how about we test your skills? Ben said with a grin as he picked up 2 controllers and tossed me one. I caught it and gave him a mischievous smile. I won't look back, I laughed. He chuckled and started the Xbox 360, popping Halo in. Just as we were about to hit play, the front door opened, and 2 females walked in. One I knew was Sally, while the other I had no clue about. She had black hair and a very long neck. They were laughing until their eyes fell on me. Sally clutched her teddy bear tighter while the other looked at me wide-eyed. The older-looking one instantly got in a defensive stance, and I tensed up. "Shit," Jeff spat worriedly. I forgot to mention the last one was Chapter 9. And now we're going to Chapter 10, Explanation. "Why is a human here?" the woman hissed. Her eyes flickered from the group she knew well to me. Just calm down. She's your guest," Jeff said, getting up. Let me repeat myself. Why's a human here?" she asked a little more sternly. Before anyone could respond, Sally held her teddy bear, Charlie, up to her ear. "Huh?" she questioned. Another moment of silence came before she spoke again. "You think so?" She looked confused. Sally looked at me, then around as she was listening to Charlie. "Well, if you say so, Charlie." "Hello, Missy," Sally said, walking up to me. "Sally, wait," the woman said, but stopped herself. She looked in amazement as the young one gave me a smile and stuck her free hand out to me. I gladly took it. Returning the smile. "What's your name?" Sally asked. "Ariel," I replied. "That's a pretty name. Reminds me of the mermaid from the movie In Your World. You're pretty just like her," Sally said sweetly. "Oh, thank you," I said, giving her a hug. She hugged back tightly and released. "I like her, Charlie," she said to the teddy bear that seemed to be staring at me. The other woman walked up to me and looked at me up and down. You could tell by the look on her face that she didn't know if she could trust me or not. "Hello, I'm Ariel. What's your name?" I said, trying to be polite. "Miss P. Nice to meet you," she said, still unsure. "Nice to meet you too," I said with a smile. "How'd you get here?" she asked. I turned to Jeff, and he just gave me a plain look, as if he didn't care. I turned to her and began to explain. The whole time she just listened intently and didn't say a word. "So you're staying here now?" she questioned. No. No. Just for a few days until we know it's clear to get here." Oopsie. Okay. Sorry. I just got mixed up with the people's tones, but... Okay, let me just re-say it. Okay. Ha. No. She's just here for a few days until we know it's clear to get her to the other world without Rake, Tails, Saul, or Jane finding out about her. Jeff buttoned. "Why?" Sally whined. "She doesn't belong in this world," Jeff said with a tint of any annoyance. "Oh, come on, Jeffy, lighten up," Ben said, patting his back. Jeff didn't look like an eye twitch. Jeff did what I looked like an eye twitch. I don't know how that's possible with no eyelids. He slowly turned his head to look at Ben, and with the look on Ben's face, you knew he was a bit frightened. "Should I be running?" Ben asked, inching away, with the most serious, threatening face ever. Jeff nodded slowly. "Crap," Ben said as he jolted out of the room. Jeff followed closely behind, and the echo... Sorry, guys. And the echo of their footsteps ran throughout the house. Everyone just laughed as Ben ran back into the room and hid behind one of the chairs. Jeff ran in afterwards and looked around, and I pointed to where Ben was hiding with a funny smile. Ben noticed and squinted at me. "Why, you little..." he said playfully. I screamed and ran past Hoodie and Masky for defense. Ben followed, but was stopped by getting hit in the face with couch pillows by Hoodie and Masky. Everyone cracked up laughing as Ben fell backwards. I'm so sorry, people. This is so funny. Okay, back to the story. Have a nice fall, Jess snickered. Jeff's point of view. Ben looked at me, then to Ariel. He grinned mischievously and began to get up. I turned to run back down the hallway, and Ariel followed. I quickly opened the door and stepped inside, grabbing Ariel when she ran by. I shut the door and looked around the room. It was the entertainment room, just perfect. This was his favorite room. We heard Ben's voice and footsteps getting closer. Come out, wherever you are, he cooed. I grabbed Ariel's arm and brought her behind a couch that was in the middle of the room. I crouched down while she still stood watching the door. The footsteps got louder, and I could tell just by the sound that he stopped in front of the door. Get down, I whispered, yelled as I tugged her down. I must have tugged her too hard because she landed right on top of me. She looked up at me with wide eyes, and her face got redder. One thing that was for sure is that she smelled nice. Even her hair. I felt weird thinking this since I wanted to get rid of her presence. But I couldn't shake the same feeling of liking her this close to me. I guess it's just me being a guy, but the voice in my head said otherwise. Don't lie. It said before switching back to, don't kill her. I could feel and hear her heart beat, and it was about to explode, but luckily, or unlucky for me, Ben showed up behind us. He looked at us and smirked. Busted, he joked. Chapter 11, Beat Down. Ben stood over us with a devilish grin. Who knows what was going on in that head of his? Knowing him, he probably was thinking of ways to joke with us. What were you two doing? Ben asked, looking from me to Ariel. Nothing, not a damn thing, I hissed. Ariel rolled off of me and just stayed silent. I looked at her for a second, and I noticed her whole face was red. Completely different from mine, which was taking everything with ease. Ben said, unsure, as he took a pillow and threw it in my face. I launched it off of me onto Ariel, and Ariel just screamed. Muffled laughing came from underneath, and Ben started to laugh as well. Why, thanks, Jeff, she said, throwing it back to Ben. Whatever. Jeff, Slendy yelled, cutting me off. What? I asked angrily. Stop messing around and show Ariel to her room, Slendy demanded. Slendy leaned over the couch and looked at the two of us, a questioning look on his face. He reached out a long, slim hand over me and helped Ariel up, leaving me to grab onto the couch. Why do I have to? I growled. You saved her, he said. Now I was regretting saving her. I glared at Slendy and took a hold of Ariel's hand. I yanked her along, and before I left the room, I hear Ben snickering. I turned to look at him, and he switched his face to a serious one. That's what I thought, I snapped before taking her upstairs. There was one guest room we had for people like Slendorman or others, but for now it's hers. It was one of the typical fancy-looking guest rooms that was rarely used. I opened the door and walked inside of it, still holding onto Ariel's arm. Here you go, I said. Excuse me. Continue. I let go of her arm and began to walk out the door. Thank you for everything, she said sweetly. I love how she thinks. I actually wanted to save her. I turned around and walked up to her, getting in her face. She leaned back a bit, some fear in her eyes, but it wasn't of mine. That I could tell. It was more of a sad fear, like she'd done something wrong. Don't think that for 1 second I wanted or cared to save you. Don't think for 1 second you're special, because you're not. You should be thanking Smile. If it weren't for him, you'd have been dead by now. The point is that you're just another waste of space. So don't think that it's just because they've accepted you. You're staying here. I spat. She just relaxed and looked down, obviously sad. I grinned at the fact that she got the hint and turned to leave when I felt something. The voice in my head started saying, apologize, over and over in my head. For a second it stopped, and I was thinking that possibly it was gone for good, but it came right back and louder than ever. It felt like I had screamed it in a bullhorn into my ear. The pit of my stomach was upset, and I clenched it, trying to figure out what was going on. I started breathing heavily, and I just stood here, helpless to what was going on, until I realized that it was something I gotten rid of years ago. The day I began my life as a wonderful killer, when crap like this didn't happen because I killed those who caused it. No matter what, it was guilt. One of the worst feelings anyone could have, and I'm sure as hell didn't miss it. I turned around, not looking her in the eye, but I'm sure she was looking at me curiously. I walked up to her, finally meeting her gaze, and her eyes seemed watery. I'm sorry, I mumbled. She widened her eyes and looked at me in surprise. It was uncalled for, I finished before rushing out of the room. I ran down the stairs and into my room, slamming the door behind me. I paced back and forth in the middle of my room while I was holding my head. The whole time I was thinking about what's going on, what's happening to me, and the smile she gave before I ran out of the room. Ariel's point of view. I stared at the doorway that Jeff had just ran out of. A smile on my face. He had apologized, so does that mean he cares after all? I sat down on my bed that was a light greenish color with white. The floor was wooden and the walls were too. It was more of an old-fashioned feel. There was an old radio on a nightstand next to the bed that was also a lamp and clock. There was another room connected to it, but it was the bathroom. Hello, Ariel. May I come in? Slendy asked. I looked up and saw Slendy hunched over in the doorway. Sometimes it must really suck to be tall. Yeah, I replied. He walked in and stood in the middle of the room. I brought you a long shirt to keep in tonight, since I knew you didn't have anything, he said, tossing me a white long shirt. Thank you, I said happily. If you need anything, just let me know. There should be some toothbrushes and toothpaste in the bathroom. Good night, he said as began to leave. Good night, I said after him. I heard him give a small laugh as he walked out of the room and shut the door. I wonder if he ever got lonely. Though I guess not, since he had Jeff and them. As I thought this, I took my clothes off and put the shirt on. I walked into the bathroom and turned the water on and let it get cold. I searched the drawers until I found an unused toothbrush and toothpaste. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, and slipped into bed. A lot on my mind, but I managed to fall asleep as I heard these words. Go to sleep. I woke up the next morning and checked the clock. It read 6:45 in the morning. I sat up in bed. 6:45 a.m. I sat up in the bed and looked around the dark room. Everything was silent. I couldn't hear hear any snoring or anything. I got up out of bed, put my shorts on underneath the shirt, not feeling like going commando in front of guys in case they were up. I walked over to the door, opened it, and began walking down the hall. I leaned over the staircase railing, and it was getting brighter out, but still dark out. I crept down the stairs and into the living room. Was no one here? I guess I was wrong, for Smile ran out of the kitchen and up to me. He jumped on my legs, and I began to pet him on the head. "Hey, Smile, where's everyone?" I asked. Smile just whined and got off me. From behind, I could hear the front door open and close. "Hey, guys, a female voice stopped. I turned around to see a teenage girl with dark eyes and hair. She was wearing black tight shirt and skinny jeans, a white blood-stained mini jacket over the shirt. In a way, she reminded me of Jeff. Then I realized who it was. She walked to a foot away from me and looked at me like I was a candy. She smiled, walked in front of me, and began growling. "Get out of my way," she demanded, still eyeing me. She took out a knife and inched forward, causing Smile to growl louder. "I said, get out of my way," she said as she lunged at me. I moved to the side and watched her stumble over Smile, who yelped. Smile growled at her again as she turned around to attack me. She swung at me, and I grabbed her arm to knock the knife out of her hand. She hit me in the face with her elbow, and I let go. Though I did manage to get the knife out of her hand, she began to go towards it when Smile picked up the knife with his mouth and ran out the hall with it. Leaving Jane weaponless and speechless, I knew that she was wondering why Smile was helping me just by the look on her face. The face, though, was soon replaced by hate as her attention turned to me once more, and she grabbed me. She threw me over the couch, and I hit the side of the table and the ground with a thud. I grabbed my arm and tried sitting up, but Jane grabbed my hair and yanked me up. I screamed in pain. She turned my face to meet hers. "Who the hell do you think you are?" she spat. I didn't reply, but headbutt her and let go. I grabbed her neck and threw her on the table, which caused it to break. She groaned in pain with her body collided with the woods. Sorry. I stood over her, my face over hers, and she just looked up with anger and pain in her eyes. "I'll make sure to kill you nice and slow," she said as if she was whining. "I'll make sure to kill you..." Yeah, whoopsie. Okay. Continuing, I just shook my head and looked at her with my pity and frustration. I punched her in the face, and she headed the floor. She reached up to her face, but I grabbed her wrists tightly. "Get out of this house!" I screamed at her. I didn't want to fight with her, but she was going to kill me if I didn't do something. So I threw her out the window. "Holy shit!" I heard Jeff's voice scream at the from outside. Chapter 12, No Longer Hidden. I grabbed my arm and walked through the broken window, getting cut by the glass along the way. As soon as both feet touched the grass, I fell to my knees. "You threw me out the window," Jane said in disbelief as she was breathing heavily. "You tried to kill me," I shrugged, also breathing heavily. I heard footsteps, and I turned to see Jeff, Hoodie, Masky, Jack, Ben, and Slindy running towards the house. They stopped and looked at the scene before them, and with the way they were acting, they were shocked. Sorry, guys. What happened? Cindy asked in surprise. "Jane tried to kill me," I explained. "So you decided to chuck Jane's ass out the window? Nice," Ben said in amazement. Masky and Hoodie walked over to Jane, trying to get up, and squatted down next to her, chuckling. "How does it feel to get your ass handed to you by a human?" Hoodie asked. They both snickered as Jane glared at them and attempted to get up. "Shut the hell up," she hissed. Jeff walked over to me and took my arm. "I have to admit it, that was pretty damn awesome," Jeff confessed while helping me up. "Wait till you see the living room," I laughed slightly. He gently took me along through the front door and stopped as his eyes fell upon the broken table. "Oh my God," he said in either anger or, The rest followed into the living room after getting Jane away from the house. They weren't really worried much about her, and I honestly felt bad for her. They all stopped in their tracks as Jeff did and looked at the table. "Who broke the table?" Ben asked. Technically, Jane did since she was thrown into it," I confessed. "Holy crap, I missed a good fight while I was gone." "Sorry, Slendy," I apologized. "It's fine, child. It's not like you meant for this to happen," he sighed. "Hey, are you okay?" Jack asked, grabbing my shoulder. "Yeah, I'll be fine," I replied. "No, you won't. Now that Jane knows, the rest will find out. You need to get out of here," Jeff said. "Jeff's right. This is not good," Sandra agreed. "Not if we can make Jane believe it was a dream," Ben cut in. "And how do you manage to do that, dumbass?" Jeff asked. "Well," Ben said, pointing out the window. "We all looked and saw that Jane was lying in the middle of the road, unconscious." "I thought you guys told her to go home." We told her to go home, but that doesn't mean we're gonna watch her go home." Masky chuckled. Ben, Jeff, and I laughed at Masky and Hoodie, who walked outside to retrieve and knock out Jane. I suddenly got lightheaded and stumbled over a bit, and Jack and Jeff rushed to get me. "Maybe we should get you fixed up," Jack said, grabbing my arm gently. I nodded, and Jack and Jeff started taking me upstairs when Miss P and Sally ran to the railing. They looked at the living room in surprise and looked at me. "What happened?" Miss P asked, concerned. "I think the miracle question is, how could you sleep through all this?" Ben laughed as he sat down. "I'll explain. Jeff, take Ariel to her room and bandage her wounds," Jack said, leading Miss P downstairs. Jeff sighed and starts taking me to my room, but Sally stopped him by grabbing on his black pants and giving them a tug. "Is Ariel going to be okay?" she asked kindly. "I'm going to be just fine, don't you worry," I replied. She nodded and gave me a hug before running downstairs to find out what happened. Jeff walked me down to the hall and to my room, and set me on the bed gently. For a killer, he had a gentle and kind touch. He walked into the bathroom and walked out holding a bandaged case. Jeff's point of view. She seemed so helpless when she was lying there hurt, and for once I didn't need the voice telling me to kill her. I was really amazed at the damage she'd caused Jane, especially since Jane had been killing for a while now, and Ariel was not one of us. As I got the last bandage on, I noticed Ariel had drifted to sleep, probably from the exhaustion, or that it was only 7:04 in the morning. As I looked at her face, I felt bad for her. I wished that I could have been there to help her, and when I realized that I had thought this, I fell off the chair. I pulled up next to the bed to help bandage her up. I propped myself up by elbows and just stayed like that as I watched Ariel sleeping. I got up and walked over to her and looked over her body. I didn't know what compelled me to do it, but I leaned down and kissed her on the forehead. I widened my eyes and backed up at what I'd done. I wanted to kill myself. Not only was I frightened with myself mentally, fighting with myself mentally, but also that I had no clue what was happening. I turned to walk away, but something caught my eye. I looked out the window at the woods that sat next to our house. I could have sworn I saw something standing here watching the house. But whatever it was gone now. But I knew deep down inside that whatever it wasn't friendly. If it went after her, I would tear her to limb from limb. Not because I care, but because I don't think I can fight it anymore. Is there something hidden in my mind? Something about her that makes me weak? Something that is breaking down my psychotic walls that no one else can manage to even crack. No one else can do this to me. Not a single living or dead soul. Well, that's the end of chapter 12 and at the end of part 3. So hopefully you guys are ready for part 4. Coming up real soon. Bye bye.